welcome back to my channel. This week so far I haven't really been able to record, though I have finished 2 books at this point. I started with The Vanishing Half, which I've said for a while was my next book on the list. And I did film a little clip when I was partway through, just like a chapter or 2 through, so insert that clip here. Slightly scuffed video because I don't have a tripod right now, so I'm just casually holding it and hurting my arm already, so I won't do an intro. I'll do the intro before this. You would have already seen it, so I don't know why I'm saying this. But I have started reading The Vanishing Half, which most of last week's video I was calling it The Vanishing Act. So apologies for that. I literally didn't realise until I was subtitling it. I didn't even realise while I was editing it. Otherwise I would have put something in the subtitles, or not in the subtitles, but I would have put something on the screen, some text on screen being like, oh, what an idiot I am. Anyway, so this is set in, I think it was the 60s. I meant to check before I start recording, but I didn't, so here we are. And it's set in this town where they're sort of really focused on being as light as possible. And I think some of the themes are basically going to be how, I mean, it already is showing up, how America sees everything as black or white very distinctly, at least in the 60s. I don't know about now so much, but it seems that way. Because there are a lot of people that we wouldn't necessarily call black in the UK, but are definitely called black in America. Because it's like you could have like 3 great-grandparents, like 3 greats-grandparent who is black, and everyone else in your family tree could be white and you're still considered black in America. At least that's what this book is basically about. And it's really interesting. It's really bizarre. So there are these twins who have disappeared, and then one of them's come back, but the other one hasn't, and the one that's come back doesn't know where the other one is, I don't think. So that's why it's called The Vanishing Half, because half of her has vanished. And it's really interesting. I'm not really sure what else I can say without doing too many spoilers, but she's come back and everyone's like, oh my gosh, she's back, and she's brought a black child with her, like a properly black child with her. I say properly black because when she's in a city, she gets called white, but she's considered black where she lives or something. It's really interesting. The themes are going to be really fun, and I'm looking forward to the rest of it. And I'll probably just do a clip here when I've finished it rather than anything else. But so I've finished it, and I have quite a few annotations, so I want to go over those to better explain what I was saying in the clip. So the whole staying as white as possible type thing, even though you're not seen as white or whatever. The annotation that goes with that is, once you mix with common blood, you are common forever. And that's the sort of thing that it means. And I said in the clip that the twins disappeared. I want to make it clear that they ran away. Like, they didn't just up and vanish. They weren't like abducted. They, like, the town people knew, oh, they ran away. You know, it's not like a thriller like that. There's also lots of stuff about being black is being ugly throughout a lot of it. There's also one quote that was, she felt queasy at how simple it was. All there was to being white was acting like you were. And then all the rest is too late in the book to really be able to be said, I think, without spoilers. But throughout the book, it starts in 68, I believe. And then it goes to sometime in the 70s and then sometime in the 80s. And then it goes back to sometime in the 60s again or something like that. But throughout the book, there are flash forwards and flashbacks during it as well. So like, it'd be like in the 60s, they are this age, but then there's this whole great big talk about when they were a younger age and stuff like that. It's really interesting. I really enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy the ending. But the thing is with that, is that there's no better way to have ended it because it's character driven, not plot driven. So you just sort of have to, you as the writer just have to sort of decide when to end it. And I think it was really a good point to end it, but I also didn't like it. Rating wise, what should I rate it? Oh, I should have thought about this a bit more closer to the time. I remember it took me 5.1 hours to read over the span of 2 days, I think, or technically 3, but one was like in the evening, so it was 48 hours, I believe. I would recommend it to people. I would warn them that it's character-driven, not plot-driven, because I know not everyone gets along with character-driven books. People need a plot sometimes, some people. But if you like character-driven stories, this is a good one. It's got a lot of interesting themes throughout it, and lots of little bits that I wasn't expecting that were really good. And then there are a few bits where I fully gasped out loud and laughed and all that sort of stuff. I don't think I cried in this one, but I can't remember for sure. I might have a little bit. There are a couple of bits, and it's just all of the characters are so well developed, and they're so interesting and intriguing. And it's really interesting. I really enjoyed it. Trying to think about it based on other books I've read, but also trying not to base it on other books I've read at the same time for the rating. And I don't really want to commit to a rating, but I think maybe around a 4. I likely will reread it to try and catch like other bits along it and stuff. So yes, I think a 4 makes sense. The other book I've already finished is How to Catch a Queen by Alyssa Cole. This was a book that I only borrowed from the library because I wanted another book on my Kobo, because I had some car journeys to go on and I like reading my Kobo in the car. And it was by Alyssa Cole, who was the author of When No One Is Watching, which I listened to last week, that I thoroughly enjoyed. I gave it a 4.5. I wasn't expecting what I got. I like going to books quite blind, so I didn't look up anything about this book, but I looked at the cover and I assumed young adult, maybe even teen. Because growing up, if I saw that cover, that is what that would mean. But I should have realised that that wouldn't necessarily mean that, because there are books like Icebreaker that very much look like books that I read growing up, but very much are not. There is spice in that I haven't read it, but apparently it's very spicy. And obviously the ones I read growing up were not, because they were age appropriate. So they say don't judge a book by its cover, but you should be able to judge a book by its cover. But this whole thing about book cover art changing what it means sort of thing is a whole other issue that I don't think I really want to go into in this video, but I might make a video dedicated to it. But it's just... I should have realised in the prologue though, because someone's lips were described as plump or plush. I can't remember what it was, but I was like, that's a bit okay. And then it got a bit spicy and I was like, oh, that was a sign. There is a very cringe line and a few lines after that link to that cringe line that I've seen some videos about petty reasons people DNF'd a book, and 100% that would be on some people's lists. But it was one scene that had that issue. That's it. How to Catch a Queen is based in some fictional countries. Well, actually, it's based in one, but there are a few bits in other countries which do have names that are related to actual countries and stuff like that. So it's it's not meant to be those places, I don't think, anyway. But there is a prince who is becoming king in the prologue. In order to become king, he has to marry someone. So he marries someone from this other place that very last minute she's been like, yeah, okay, because she's been training to be queen her entire life as a commoner. Her goal in life has been to become a queen. So she manages that. But in this kingdom, queens don't tend to be queen for longer than 4 months. So she's got to try and do the best she can in those 4 months. But it's a very misogynistic country and the queen is meant to do nothing. So there's lots of little issues with that sort of thing, and he just completely ignores her and all that sort of stuff. It is a romance book, hence the spice. It was a bit of fun, but it's not something that I'm really wanting to read the rest of the series. I think the rest of the series isn't actually a sequel. It's like a spin-off sequel, like it happens in the same world, but I'm not sure, because the next one is called How to Find a Princess, and it's got the same sort of cover. And the little brief snippet that I saw said something about it being an Anastasia retelling or something like that. I'm not sure. So I borrowed and downloaded that to my Kobo as well, because I wasn't sure how much time I'd have to read and I didn't want to run out of book when I wanted to read more, sort of thing. So I might return that unread currently, and I am reading physical books now, print books. I started reading this last night and I did a little clip related to it. Insert it here. I just filmed this whole clip saying it about how scuffed the clip is just because I'm in my pyjamas and no other reason. And then I started reading and then I looked up and I noticed that my microphone was not plugged in. Oops. All I wanted to do before I started reading Kindred, which I now have technically started reading Kindred, but I'm not past the prologue because I looked up and realised that I'd utterly scuffed the scuffed clip, was that I wanted to share the few things that I knew about it before I started reading, which are simply, it's a time travelling tale where the main character goes between 1970s when it was written and the 1800s or 18th century, I always get this mixed up, plantation. As a black woman, it's not going to be a good time, I imagine. And that's the limit of it. That and the fact that there is a TV show based on it on Disney Plus, which I found out when I was finding out where to buy the book, because there's an alternate cover that has that on it. Personally, I don't like to buy books that have the adaptation on the front, so I was pretty happy to have this, which, bearing in mind, Kindred was published in 1979. There's been loads of different covers for it, I'm sure. And yeah, I just didn't want the TV show on it, especially if I read this and then I watch the TV show and I love this and I hate the TV show, then I'd be really annoyed looking at it all the time. Anyway, I'm going to continue reading the prologue now and reading it in general. Right, so my plan now is to continue reading this. Obviously, I'm really enjoying it. It smells good. I'm just going to say that. The book smells good. People who read print books and specifically like to read print books understand, I'm sure. And so far, it's been pretty much as I explained in that clip. Although there is a little bit of things that's been sort of revealed that I'm like barely in it, by the way. I'm like there. But it seems that she might be travelling back. She's forced to travel back. She doesn't know what's happening, why it's happening, all that sort of stuff. But it might be due to some sort of family history. So she's going to have to work out that in order to make it stop, I think. And that feels like a lot of fun. And speaking of family history, my book next in line is Cursed Daughters by Oyinkan Braithwaite, or something along those lines. And then I'll have Make Me a Monster. That is, if I have time to read all those books before the end of the month, which, I mean, is 8 days, so it's possible, but also I've got loads of other stuff going on, so who knows. And I will talk to you after I've read some more of this, I'm sure. When I recorded yesterday, I was super tired, and I realised I'm pretty sure I missed a lot of the stuff that I wanted to say about How to Catch a Queen. And the thing is, I was so tired, I'm not sure whether I already said it, but if I have, I'll just choose the take that's best. My first thing is that I had an issue with the pacing of the book. It sort of felt like a lot of nothing happened or not much happened and then suddenly everything happened, which, to be fair, is how the other book by Alyssa Cole that I read this month, When No One Is Watching, worked, sort of. But that was a thriller and it works on a thriller, but for me, it didn't work on the romance. Like, yes, there was some mystery throughout it, so it sort of worked in that way, but it just didn't hit for me, that's all. Another thing that I didn't mention was that there's this whole technology going on. So it's modern day, which wasn't what I expected necessarily when you're reading a book about royals. It tends to not be modern day. So they're all texting one another and they're using the internet and social media and that sort of thing, which was, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. It was just a bit weird and unexpected. And the weirdest thing about it was that there were some bits with emojis and you can clearly tell because there's a bit where there's just Sanyu blank. I think it's Sanyu, doesn't really matter anyway. Sanyu, oops, that was the wrong emoji or whatever. And it's just, I don't see the emoji. I don't know whether it's the limitation of it being an ebook or a limitation of my Kobo, but there was just no emoji there whenever an emoji was sent. So I was just sort of left out of that a bit, like catching parts of a conversation. There's only one point where it was mentioned what emoji it was, which, to be fair, wouldn't need to be mentioned if the emoji was actually there. So, as I said, that's probably about the ebook or my Kobo. It's the print book is probably absolutely fine. I haven't added up all the times that I read it to know how long it took me in total, but I think it probably took me about 5 hours or certainly not more than that. Okay, so now we're on to rating. And I've thought about this quite a fair bit, and I've got it. So I don't think I would recommend this to someone unless it came up in conversation specifically of I want something like this or anything like that. I don't think I would outright say, oh, you should read this book without some sort of conversation leading up to that, which I would for other books. I mean, normally there's a conversation leading up to a book recommendation anyway, but a specific lead up to something that would directly relate to that book, I don't think I would recommend it. But I am not against reading it again, and there are quite a few little breadcrumbs in that little mystery that I mentioned earlier, and so not all of it's resolved. I don't know if that's going to be resolved in the sequel, bearing in mind I think it's a spin-off sequel, but I digress. And I noticed some at the time, and I noticed some in retrospect, but maybe I'd find a bit more if I read through it again, so I might do that at some point. So I'm going to rate this a 3, which isn't a good rating, but it's also not a bad rating. It's bad compared to the other Alyssa Cole book that I've read, which I rated 4.5, but I think maybe she might just be a better thriller writer than romance writer, in my opinion, in how it relates to what I enjoy. I said before that I'm not actually that much of a romance reader. Before this year, I hadn't read any romance, really, or even at all, not fully all the way through. I mean, you could count Twilight, I suppose, but definitely not the same sort of thing. I think, in fact, that this was my first non-fantasy romance. So in that respect, it's kind of, I don't know, maybe that's how romances normally work. Not that much and then everything all at once. To be clear, the not that much isn't a bad thing. It was just comparative. It felt strange. It felt like suddenly I'm being bombarded with all this stuff going on. Anyway, moving on to Kindred. I'm on page 210 of 295. You can't really see my bookmark, but maybe if I zoom in, you will, to know a bit what that looks like. And I am thoroughly enjoying it. Thoroughly. I woke up in the middle of the night, 4:23, and I was like, okay, I can't just pick up my book and read. But if it gets to 5, then I will. So I diligently waited until 5:08, I think it was, and then picked it up and read for about 2.5 hours before I was like, I should try to get some more sleep now. And then Lotus came in and screamed in my ear, but that's kind of irrelevant. So to give some information that isn't too spoilery, she is going backwards and forwards through time. So she's in 1976, and then she will have something that makes her go back in time to somewhere in the 1800s. I say somewhere in the 1800s because it changes. So she's sort of living through that time by the way she goes back. I'm not sure if that makes fully sense, but say she goes, I can't remember any of the years because the years are all written out in words and they just don't stick in my brain that way. The only reason I remember 1976 is because it's mentioned so many times. And I fully was like, oh, 76. So I was right about the 70s. It's like mid 70s. This was published in 79. It has been quite dark, obviously, because she's going back in time to a slave plantation. Like, if it weren't dark, there'd be something wrong with it. But it's not as dark as one might expect. It's very realistic and historical. So in that respect, it's a dark part of history, obviously, but it's not so much unexpected darkness. Like, there are some shocking bits, obviously, but it's shocking in the way we're seeing it personally, whereas, like, anyone who's learned about it probably knows that at least most of these things went on, sort of thing. As in, they knew that most of these things went on, not at least most of these things did go on. As far as I'm aware, it's historically accurate. There is a bit where she looks at a history book to try and get a better idea of what to expect if she goes back. And I was pleasantly surprised by how much I already knew or remembered, because we didn't do a lot of American history at all in school because I didn't go to an American school. And very much the only thing we did was about slavery. And so it's basically the one part of American history that I knew, apparently. So she mentioned Harriet Ross, and I was pleasantly surprised to realise that I knew who that was before she even mentioned that Harriet Ross became Harriet Tubman. And I was like, oh, hey, I knew something. It's a really interesting read, seeing how all the characters develop and everything in that time period. And so it's sort of, it's not character driven. I mean, it's character driven, but it's not specifically a character driven novel. There is a plot going on through it, obviously, because she keeps going back in time. She doesn't know why, and she's trying to basically fix that. I love it. I don't know how much it's going to rate in the end at this point, but I know it's going to rate highly. And I am so ready to get back into it. So that's what I'm going to do right now. And I'll talk to you probably after I've finished it. I I don't know what to say. Gosh, I am so glad I found out about this. That it was so close to me not finding out about it at all, or maybe not at all, but I found out about it because Waterstones had a competition. That's the word. A competition where you could win your entire wish list. And it came up as a suggestion after I put all my Black History Month books on the wish list. And I thought, this sounds really good. If I finish those 5 books, maybe I'll read this, especially if I win the wish list. I've also since seen it referenced on a literary agent's page of like books that literary agent likes. Oh my words. I cannot think of a single criticism. No, that's not true. I have one single criticism, and that's a pet peeve of mine, where people say someone and I when it should be me and someone. But that's so common, it's barely relevant as criticism for a book. I mean, except for the few times where the person's very, I'm all grammatical, I am so smart, and then they make silly mistakes like that someone who was actually like really into grammar wouldn't make. I said many times that a 5-star for me means I immediately want to start again from the beginning. I don't have that feeling with this, but the fact that I can't think of any criticisms, and I can't think of anyone I wouldn't recommend this to. I mean, other than sort of people who don't read all that much and everything, who might find it a bit difficult to read. I mean, it's a shortish book, but the words are margin to margin. Wait, as in there aren't really margins in it, which has made it so that I've broken the spine just a tiny bit there, which you wouldn't be able to see or notice, and whatever. Gosh, I think it has to be a 5-star. The author unfortunately has passed away. I think she was only in her 50s as well, if I remember correctly. About 19 years ago. But if she were alive and I met her, I'd want to shake her hand, and I don't like shaking people's hands. It makes me uncomfortable pretty much every single time, but I don't have words to explain this. There was one line I wanted to discuss. So the line is, like the Nazis, antebellum whites had known quite a bit about torture, quite a bit more than I ever wanted to learn. So this is talking about when she's looking up history stuff, if I remember correctly, and it's talking about concentration camp survivors, the stories of them and stuff, and it says, as though the Germans had been trying to do in only a few years what the Americans had worked at for nearly 200. That is actually exactly what the Nazis did. They actually sent people to America to see how they had been doing what they had been doing, all the way back from slavery to what was then modern day, because, I mean, things are better now, but they're not good. But they were better then than they were during slavery, but they weren't good. So that was actually what Nazis were basing their plans on. And I don't know whether that was known in 1970s when that was written, but yeah. Oh, I was wondering how it could possibly end, and that was a great ending, in my opinion. I thought that I was thinking through it, and there were so many different ways that I thought it could end, but it wouldn't quite. And I often see endings coming in books and films and TV shows and everything, but I didn't. I didn't see it in this one. I really didn't. I mean, it was arguably a little like that might happen, but I didn't think it would. I actually didn't realize how good I was at predicting books until I gave some predictions whilst I was reading Project Hail Mary to a friend who'd already read it. And then after I finished it, he was like, "Yeah, you called it here." And I was like, "Oh, so I did. I completely forgot because my theories had changed throughout." Anyway, I can't not give it 5 stars. I can't. Conclusion wrap up of this week? I don't I don't know. I'm still in the book lag or book hangover or whatever right now. I've literally just finished it. Oh, okay. What was the first book I read this week? Oh, The Vanishing Half. That was really good. I think I gave that about 4 stars. I think I gave it 4 stars. I don't really want to commit to a rating, but I think maybe around a 4. That was really good. It was, yeah. And then Alyssa Cole's How to Catch a Queen. Nowhere near as good, but it was all right. And then I'm so glad. Oh dear. I might try out the TV show and I might do a video comparing the two. There is also a graphic novel version which is available on Libby, so I might try that out as well and maybe give a little comparison video between them all, which might involve some spoilers, but if it does, I'll warn, sort of thing. Fully recommend. Fully recommend. I am sure there are audiobooks of it because this has been published so many times. I can see why it's been published so many times. Unfortunately, this copy doesn't actually say when it was published, like all the times it was published. It was first published in 1979. It was first published in Great Britain in 2014, which seems surprisingly late. And this edition was published in 2018. And I know there's an edition that was published since the TV show came out, which I think was probably only a few years ago. I only found out because I was looking for the book. If you get a chance to read that, I think it would probably be good. It is sci-fi, but I don't think you need to be into sci-fi to read it because the only sci-fi thing about it is the time travel. And I know that sounds weird, like the only sci-fi thing is time travel. But I mean, it's not going into lots of science stuff in the way that Project Hail Mary would and stuff like that, which I also recommend, by the way. I mean, it's not sci-fi in the sense that it could almost be fantasy. Like, there are not that I think it's fantasy. I mean that the sort of sci-fi stuff that's in it is stuff that can also be in fantasy, so it's not exclusive to sci-fi. If you like historical novels, then yeah. I always do this, I feel. This is my wrap up of the week, this is the conclusion, and then I just continue talking about the book that I just finished. Anyway, if you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe if you want to, you don't have to. I make quite a few videos like this, or I have been currently. My reading plans for the rest of October is Cursed Daughters by, I can't remember her name, I'll put it on screen anyway, and Make Me a Monster by Kalin Bayron. And I do have How to Find a Princess by Alyssa Cole on my Kobo currently, so I might read that as well. My next video will probably be more of a wrap up of the entire month and my plans for next month. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Please let me know if you've read any of these or if you might pick them up. And just realized my hair's so messy, but whatever. Anyway, maybe you'll see me in the next one. Until then, bye.